Well, the Roval once again proves to be an ultimate wildcard race, as we have now divided from 12 drivers to 8 drivers left in the playoffs. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. The Charlotte Roval, one of the ultimate wildcards that we have in the playoffs, aside from Talladega. Ever since we introduced this circuit in 2018, it has provided some entertaining and exciting and dramatic moments to determine who advances to the next round of the playoffs. It was an elimination race in the round of 16 the first 2 years, then it became an elimination race in the round of 12 ever since 2020, and it continues to prove to be a dramatic race. And yesterday, with a new configuration, we saw a lot of twists and turns, comers and goers throughout the race, and a lot of drama to see who would advance into the next round of the playoffs. But at the end of the day, one of our playoff drivers that's already into the round of 8 got the job done in victory lane with a nice special family moment. Let's get into all that went down at the Roval yesterday. Number 1, Larson with his 6th win of the season. That's right, Kyle Larson just continues to dominate this year as he picks up his 2nd win at the Roval, his 6th win of the season, winning yesterday's Bank of America Roval 400, beating Christopher Bell, William Byron, Austin Cindric, and Chase Elliott for the victory. Remember the last time we were here at Charlotte in May? Kyle Larson did not run the Coca-Cola 600 at the start because Mother Nature was impacting his opportunity to complete the double, running the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 in the same day. He said because of the opportunity to run the Indy 500 for the first time ever, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to not run that race, so he decided to forego the start of the Cup Series race and miss the start and run the entire Indianapolis 500, which he did. Then he flew all the way to Charlotte thinking he could get in the car, even though he would not get the points because Justin Allgaier started. He would hop in, get into the car, and try to see what he could do in the race. Well, unfortunately, when he just landed and got into this track, the rain started to fall down and we never got back going, and he was not able to run that race. But he was still able to make the playoffs because NASCAR said his attempt to get to Charlotte was enough for him to get a waiver. And yesterday, he was able to put behind the disappointment of not running the double at Charlotte and win at the Roval for the 2nd time. He led the most laps, 62 out of the 109, and was able to capitalize and get another win to help him into the next round of the playoffs. Larson was really solid yesterday, running in the top 5, top 10 for the most part. He didn't really show a lot of strength until the final stage when he was able to close up on those guys that he was running down for the lead, like AJ Allmendinger, Christopher Bell, SVG, among others, and he was able to take the lead during green flag pit stops. And even when we had a caution with about 27 laps to go, when the 3-car Boston Dillon lost his left front wheel when he left pit road, thinking he changed all tires, but it was not the case. It brought out a caution. A couple cars stoked on pit road, but Larson was one of the guys many cars that stayed out, thinking, if we don't get a caution the rest of the race, we can hold our track position, and he knew he had a good race car to hold off the rest of those guys. And it showcased that yesterday in the closing laps, where after he was able to jump away from the field after the final restart, nobody could catch him. It was pretty much Larson's control from there on out. The only thing that could have changed the outcome of the race was a late race yellow. Unfortunately, that never happened, and Larson was able to get the win. Although the last lap, he got stuck behind Daniel Suarez, who was having some problems, and Christopher Bell behind him in 2nd place was trying everything he could to close in on him and get to him. It was not enough, and Larson was able to get the victory. And it was a special moment for him post-race to celebrate with his daughter, Audrey. We've seen in the past him celebrate with his son, Owen, on the track, but now he got to see his little daughter, Audrey, celebrate with Kyle on the front straightaway. Owen was probably out doing some midget sprint car races somewhere else apparently, but Audrey getting out there to the front stretch, celebrating with her daddy, collecting the checkered flag was a pretty nice moment. And these bonus points that he's got, it really helps him into this next round of the playoffs because these 3 races, Kyle Larson's won at all of them. Las Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville. I mean, this round just couldn't go better upcoming for Kyle Larson. All he just needs to do is win one of those races or finish top 5 in all those races, and it'll be enough for him to move into the championship 4. It would be shocking if Kyle Larson could not advance to the championship 4 with this round of races we've got coming up in the round of 8. Things are definitely going his way, I believe. So a big congrats to Kyle Larson and Cliff Daniels and the 5 team on an impressive win yesterday. Number 2, Bowman out, Logano in. Yesterday, as I've did a recap video of me at the race track with me filming my experience from the Roval this weekend. It was determined after the race that Alex Bowman failed post-race inspection and was thus taken out of the round of 8 drivers and thus vaulted Joey Logano back in. To quickly dive into a little bit more, Alex Bowman yesterday was able to score a stage win and 10 stage points to help him and his cushion above the cutoff line ahead of guys like Joey Logano and Tyler Reddick. Well, Bowman came away yesterday originally with an 18th place finish, and we felt like that was enough. And Joey Logano, who despite getting a lot of stage points yesterday, it wasn't enough to close the gap on some guys like Bowman, Denny Hamlin, and Tyler Reddick. And of course, with Logano getting passed by some of those guys with fresh tires late, hurt his chances. It was originally determined that Bowman was going to be in and Joey Logano was going to be left out by just a couple points behind the 45 car of Tyler Reddick. However, as I mentioned, post-race inspection happened and determined that Alex Bowman's number 48 car did not meet the minimum weights when they were weighing the car post-race. It did not meet specifications, and thus NASCAR disqualified Alex Bowman, stripping away all the points he accumulated from stage number 2, and thus taking him out of the round of 8 and promoting Joey Logano back into the round of 8, keeping him alive in the championship battle. It caught me out of the blue. I was sitting down at dinner last night with my dad, and I get this tweet update just as we're about to, put in our order for dinner, and Alex Bowman got disqualified. I'm like, what? Bowman's out? After he did all that effort to get that stage win in stage 2? I couldn't believe it. But the rules are the rules. Now, what I think may have happened to Alex Bowman that may have triggered all this. Early in the race, literally on the second lap, when he's going through the final chicane on the front straightaway, he hopped over the curb, and maybe that had an effect on his car as far as the weight not meeting the specifications post-race. That may have had something to do with it. Unfortunately, we won't know for certain, and Hendrick Motorsports did come out today and said that they will not appeal the penalty, and thus they will accept that Alex Bowman is not going to advance to the round of 8. I mean, they could have appealed it, and maybe with strong arguments could have promoted Bowman back into the round of 8 and taken Logano out again. But they will not do that. It'll only be 300 cars moving on. Alex Bowman, unfortunately, is the one that's left out. A tough break considering the guy has had a nice bounce-back season with the win at the Chicago Street Course and has had a very solid playoff run until the outcome yesterday. As for Joey Logano, what thought like he was going to be done and officially out of the playoffs after the rough race at Talladega a week ago, he's now back in the conversation to make it to the Championship 4. Every year that we've run these playoffs in this format, in the even-numbered years, Joey Logano has made the Final Four and has won the championship twice. So now that it's 2024, the odds are, honestly, could be stacked in Logano's favor in these final 3 races. He has to at least win one of these races or at least run well, and everybody else ahead of him doesn't run well. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But Joey Logano still got another shot at this Championship 4. But as for Alex Bowman, a dagger to the heart. Number 3, Reddick advances barely. It was a battle yesterday for Tyler Reddick in the number 45 team because he came into this race 14 points above the cutoff line, knowing all he needed to do was get a good amount of stage points yesterday, and he would be good to go into the round of 8 at a round where there's a lot of tracks that he also benefits with some success at those tracks. Well, yesterday he started off the race winning stage number 1 when a lot of those guys that were electing to go for the win came down pit road early towards the end of stage number 1. Guys that needed the points to help themselves as far as the playoff bubble. Tyler Reddick was one of those cars, and he was able to win stage number 1 and get 10 extra points and a stage point to help him out. Well, when stage 2 happened, because a lot of those guys that pitted towards the end of stage number 1 were a good amount of the field, he had to restart deeper in the field along with some of the other cars like Logano and Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney. Reddick had to fight his way through the field, but it was a struggle. He couldn't really go anywhere, and he got involved in a couple collisions, and particularly in the new section of the track in turn 6 and turn 7, where he made a dive bomb move into the hairpin and lost it and actually doored the side of his teammate and co-owner Denny Hamlin, and that damaged the right rear toe link of the 45 car. Thankfully, a caution happened at that moment where he was able to come in and get some repair work done, but when I saw them looking at the wheel and everything, I thought, oh my goodness, our regular season champion could be eliminated in this round. But they were able to fix the car despite the damage and they were able to get back out there and just run and hang on and stay on the lead lap, because the moment that he was able to leave pit road and get back on the track, the field was just coming out of the final corners, getting ready to take the green flag on the restart. So Reddick got very close to getting lapped, but he was able to stay on the lead lap, and a couple more pit stops. He was able to work on the car. They kept fixing it, trying to get it back to at least a competitive edge so he can fight his way up through the field. And he was one of the few cars that pitted under that last caution that happened with about 27 to go. Came in and got tires and fuel and was able to pick his way up through the field and get up to 11th place. And that was enough for him to punch his ticket to the round of 8 over what was supposed to be him over Joey Logano until the Bowman penalty. But Reddick lives to fight another day. A very impressive performance. Denny came around him post-racing, wrapped his arms around him, said, "I'm so proud of you." And the other boss man, MJ himself, Michael Jordan, was there in attendance and was very proud of Tyler Reddick's effort to just never give up and fight hard to the very end, and that's what they did, and they're still alive to win this championship. And don't be shocked. I think Tyler Reddick, after yesterday, he's lucky to get to this round, because a lot of these tracks I mentioned, he's very good at them, and he could very well find himself in the championship 4, despite what was a struggle for him in the round of 12. But he lives to fight another day. Tyler Reddick still has a shot at this championship. Number 4, the 4 men that have been left eliminated: Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, and Chase Briscoe. I've talked a lot about Alex Bowman, so I don't need to get into too much detail. He's been eliminated because of the disqualification. As for the other 3, things were pretty much, must win for them, and none of them were able to get the job done. Let's start first with Austin Cindric, who ran really well yesterday. Ran up in the top 5, ran up in the top 10. He had a really good race car. I don't think he had the winning speed that he needed, because he came in at a pretty big deficit after that big wreck last week at Talladega. He knew coming in he needed to at least win the race, and given his road course experience, I felt like he would be up there in the mix all day long, having at least an opportunity to try to win to punch his ticket to the round of 8. Well, he was up there in the mix, but unfortunately, he just wasn't as good as some of those cars that he was running against. The colleague cars of AJ Allmendinger and SVG, the Hendrick cars of Larson, Elliott, Byron, and even Bowman when he had his track position at one point, Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, even Tyler Reddick before his contact in the middle of stage 2. Cindric was up there with an opportunity at least to try to win the race. But unfortunately, it was not enough. He ended up with a 4th place result, which is still really good. It just doesn't get him into the round of 8. But given that the 2-car and Cindric had a slump last year with no consistency, and this year winning a gateway and being able to make it to the round of 12, it's a pretty big accomplishment by them, and I think they should be proud of themselves. And hopefully they'll build to better things for next season. Now to Daniel Suarez, who also was a really good road course racer. He just didn't really have it yesterday, surprisingly, given that he's run well at road courses. It just didn't go his way. And one of the incidents he got caught up in was in a pileup over at turn 7. And during that time, he also hopped the backstretch chicane over the curbing, and thus affected something, I think, with his brakes. They kept bringing down pit road, trying to work on it and see if they could fix the problem. I don't think it ever got fixed, because he was just really off the pace for the most part yesterday, was nowhere near competitive. Again, he came in also in a must-win situation. It didn't go his way. He finished a lap down at the very end, and Suarez is thus done for the playoffs. But still a really good season for the guy who won in one of the closest finishes at Atlanta this year. They still have a lot to be proud about, and of course Suarez has got another year with Trackhouse next year, and they'll try to come back stronger. And then we have Chase Briscoe, who also must-win situation. Nothing went his way yesterday. He was deep in the pack. They didn't qualify well. They tried to fight their way up to the field to no avail, and they got involved in an incident where they made contact with somebody that had cut the right rear tire and damaged the right rear wheel, and thus eliminated Chase Briscoe in stage number 2. I mean, I knew coming in it was going to be an uphill climb for the 14 team. Even in the final year of the Stewart-Haas Racing banner, it was going to be a tough go for Chase Briscoe. But again, he should be proud of his season as well. This being the last year with him driving for Stewart-Haas Racing. He goes to Joe Gibbs Racing next year to replace Martin Truex Jr., who will retire after this year. Briscoe got the win at Darlington to make it to the playoffs and advance all the way through the round of 12, being consistent. They should still be proud of themselves and just try to finish the year strong, maybe get one more win for Stewart-Haas Racing before it becomes Haas factory team next year. But those 4 drivers, unfortunately, see their playoff hopes come to an official end. They had really good seasons. It just didn't go their way in this round. And number 5, the racing at the Roval. I thought the racing at this year's Roval with this next-gen car went very well. Very competitive racing. And I think one of the changes that benefited the racing for the Cup Series this weekend and this year's race was the new configuration that we put. Just a couple of months before we got ready to prepare ourselves for this race, Marcus Smith, the CEO of SMI, announced that the Roval would have a new look as far as the configuration, particularly in the intersection of the racetrack. Instead of that sweeping, S-turn and everything, they added an extra mini straightaway coming out of turn number 5, leading all the way down the hill to a sweeping right-hander at turn 6, and leading to a sharp hairpin at turn 7 all the way up onto the NASCAR turn 1 and 2 banking to try to provide a little more entertainment and a little more competitive action between the competitors. Because a lot of people felt like over the last couple of years, especially with the next-gen car, that the racing as far as trying to close up and catch a guy with the old configuration was not working well. So they added a new configuration with the little extra straightaway, wider turn, and the sharp hairpin to try to provide a little more excitement and some dive bomb moves and setting up those passes down into the hairpin. And, of course, they also made a little bit of a change to the front stretch chicane, as well as subtracting a little bit of the curbing because it affected some guys on Saturday. They went from the 4-inch turtle curbs to 2.5-inch, regular curbing. And I felt like this weekend the racing was really, really good. You saw a lot of dive bomb passes and a lot of bump and runs into that corner over there in the hairpin turn 7. Yes, there were a couple of collisions. Yes, a couple of guys spun out over there in that section. But most of them got away and got going even after the contact. We were able to continue on and thus leading to no cautions at all. It was some really good racing yesterday. I felt like that the changes that they made to the intersection of the racetrack made a difference in seeing some competitive racing and seeing those dive bomb moves, especially guys that were trying to get to the inside and pass guys to get some of those points and extra positions that they needed, especially when it came to the playoff drivers. Made a difference yesterday, and I felt like it was really, really good. So kudos to Marcus Smith and everybody, for making those changes to the Roval. I know there are a lot of people still divided on the Roval, even though like the first year was a massive success. The next 2 years of the Roval were really good. Even 2021 was good. The last 2 years have kind of taken a little bit of a nosedive off because of the next-gen car not being well equipped on these road courses. But I think that the changes that we made for the Roval this year made a difference and saw some very competitive racing. We'll see how it goes for next year. Again, we will be back at the Roval in 2025, but for the most part, I think it made a difference and we saw some good racing. Not just yesterday, but the entire weekend, especially with the Xfinity race on Saturday. So the 8 drivers that will officially move on to the round of 8 are as followed: Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and because of post-race inspection last night, Joey Logano is also now part of the round of 8. Any one of these drivers can make it to the championship 4. I don't think anybody would be shocked to see any of these 8 drivers in one of those 4 spots come Phoenix when we decide who will be battling out for the championship. I think the biggest shock would be if Kyle Larson didn't make it because he enters this round with a 33-point cushion. I mean, it would be a shock to see him blow that point lead and not win any of these races and not advance. But I don't think it'll happen. But those are the 8 men that will move on and have an opportunity. They're going to be in a dogfight in this final round. So, with that being said, the next round, the round of 8, will determine who makes the championship 4. They consist of the following: Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Homestead Miami Speedway, and Martinsville Speedway. Those 3 tracks, 2 of them are 1.5-mile tracks, and the final one is the paperclip track. And that race will determine which drivers will make it to the championship 4 as far as, the seedings entering the race and then after the race. It's going to be a battle for these 8 drivers in these next 3 races to be in the top 4 by the end of the race at Martinsville. It's going to be a battle, and I can't wait to see who gets in and see who does not get in. And I also want to thank Charlotte Motor Speedway, by the way, for their hospitality for everybody that was attending this weekend. I was one of them, and I had a blast at both races this weekend. I took some snippets, and I'll put them into a vlog. It'll be out by the weekend of both the Xfinity and the Cup race this weekend, but it was a great event all around. So what will happen in this upcoming round of the round of 8? Will any of our playoff drivers open up the round of 8 with a win at Vegas and cash in big? Because Vegas is a fun racetrack with multiple crews of racing and all the passes you could set up. It's going to be a battle. Will any non-playoff driver spoil any of these guys' opportunity to get to victory lane? Who's going to cash in big? Who craps out? We're going to find out next weekend. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope you enjoyed yesterday's race at the Roval. Subscribe, like. Congrats once again to Kyle Larson, the 5 team, and congrats to the 7 other drivers that will join him in the round of 8. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!